The first type of networking component that we're going to talk about in this section is the network interface card. Now, it could be called a network interface card or a NIC or a network adapter. Any of those terms are interchangeable. Now, you should already have a good idea of what a NIC is because I already talked about it earlier in the course when I introduced MAC addresses to you. Remember, the MAC address is associated with a specific NIC card. Each one has its own unique MAC address and it's physically burned onto the ROM chip on that NIC card. And we can't change it. Yes, we could spoof it in the operating system, but we can't actually change it. Now, why are these important? Well, if you have a device that you want to be able to communicate on a network, you need to have at least one network interface card. Let's say that I am building a new desktop PC for video editing. If I want that system to be able to communicate on the network, it needs to have at least one network interface card. And typically I'm going to want to have two. Why is that? Well, nowadays we typically want to have a wired one and we want to have one that goes over Wi-Fi. So it's more than normal nowadays to see them with both a standard wired one, like you see here, with an RJ45 port for an Ethernet cable, and then a wireless one. Now, you're typically not going to see them like this. Most of them are just built into the motherboard now. You don't see them, but in the past, you would see an antenna. And you could actually, for some of these, you can actually buy an antenna, a high gain antenna, and plug it in if you're not getting good signal. Now, in terms of network interface cards, like I said, you can have more than one on a system. And for enterprise grade equipment like Cisco routers and switches that are managed, you can plug in more than one. And also in regards to the servers, it's very common for servers to have more than one network interface card, meaning they're going to have more than one IP address and MAC address associated with them for redundancy purposes, or maybe they need to connect to more than one network. And here's an example down here. We have a server grade motherboard and it has 1 and 2 RJ45 ports. So these are going to be our integrated network interface cards on this motherboard. Now, I already mentioned this earlier, but in terms of connecting to a network, we can do Wi-Fi, so we can do radio signals, we can do electrical with RJ45 Ethernet cables, or we can do fiber optics, so we can do light signals as well. So that's the network interface card. Pretty basic, pretty straightforward, but very essential if you want to communicate on a network. You need at least one NIC.